Hey, what's up guys? This is Xiaomi's new mid-range phone, the Redmi Note 8 Pro, and like all other Redmi phones, it's packing a lot of features for a low price. But in such a crowded smartphone market, are they enough to make this device stand out? I'm Will for GSM Arena, and let's take an in-depth look in our full review. The Redmi Note 8 Pro is a pretty affordable phone that wants to punch above its weight class feature-wise. It's got a huge battery, a new gaming-centric chipset, and an impressive-looking quad-camera setup. The phone is built from Gorilla Glass, though Xiaomi has opted to make the frame from plastic, not metal, probably for budget reasons. The finish is quite glossy, and the glass isn't entirely flat. The subtle curves add a nice aesthetic. Our model is in the conservative mineral gray, but there are also more eye-catching forest green and pearl white options. But one strange detail is that the rear-mounted fingerprint scanner sits on the camera bump itself, right below the cameras. It's lightning fast, and I haven't had a misread yet. But if you're not careful, it's quite easy to accidentally smudge the ultra-wide camera with your finger. The phone is actually rather heavy, maybe because of the large battery. It's also quite tall and slippery, so not the best device for one-handed use. As you might have expected, there isn't any official waterproofing on this phone, but thanks to a special coating and rubber seal, Xiaomi says that it can handle some light splashes. The Redmi Note 8 Pro's screen is a tall IPS LCD with a 1080p resolution. At 6.5 inches, it's a bit larger than the one on the previous model. It brings a familiar design bezel-wise, and the selfie cam is housed within a small water drop style notch at the top. This display looks nice, even though it's not an AMOLED. Still, there's good contrast for an LCD, and high brightness, up to 460 nits with the manual slider. And there's a boost to 640 in auto mode when it's sunny out. Colors aren't the most accurate, however, with whites tending toward bluish. Since it's an LCD, we didn't expect an always-on display, but there is a notification LED that can give you a heads up to check your messages. Besides using the fingerprint reader, you can quickly unlock the phone with facial recognition and the lift to wake function. It isn't as secure as the fingerprint scanner though. The Note 8 Pro's loudspeaker is located at the bottom, near the USB-C port. It scored a good rating in our loudness tests, which is okay, but a bit quieter than some of the competition. Otherwise, sound is pretty decent. Headphones can be plugged into the 3.5mm jack, and the output here has plenty of volume. However, it leaves more to be desired as far as stereo separation goes, and there is some measured distortion. You can opt for 64 or 128 gigs of storage here, and if you need even more room for your multimedia and apps, it is expandable through microSD. And there is NFC on this phone too, if you needed that for your mobile payments. The Redmi Note 8 Pro's user interface is the latest version of Xiaomi's MIUI 10 over Android 9 Pie. One of the main differences from stock Android is that here, your apps are all kept on the home screen. There's no option for an app drawer. You can navigate with the default navigation keys or use gestures, and the layout is nothing new here. It all feels quite intuitive. There is a dark mode you can enable, which turns all of your system menus black. Although it looks cool, it won't save you power, since the screen is an LCD. You have a lot of control over your notifications from individual apps. You can enable or disable them, not only for the lock screen or the notification shade, but also the red badges that appear on your app icons. The Note 8 Pro has an IR blaster, which means that you can use the phone as a remote control for compatible appliances and devices. And there's Game Turbo mode, which will optimize the phone for better gaming performance in enabled games. Within this menu are other performance and do not disturb settings too. Xiaomi promotes the Redmi Note 8 Pro's capabilities for gaming, so let's see what's under the hood. It brings a brand new 12nm MediaTek Helio G90T chipset, which is supposed to be more powerful than its predecessors, while still being energy efficient. In combined CPU and GPU benchmarks, the Redmi Note 8 Pro tops all of its competitors. Its scores even approach those of last year's flagships. In pure GPU tests, its Mali G76 chip does fall short of the Adreno 630 from the Snapdragon 845, but we're still impressed. In addition, the phone runs quite cool, thanks to its internal vapor chamber, and we were able to push this device pretty hard with benchmarks and games without thermal throttling. Powering the Note 8 Pro is a large 4500 mAh battery, and together with the power-efficient chipset, it provides outstanding battery life. Screen on time is stellar, and in our proprietary battery tests, the phone earned a 114-hour endurance rating, one of the best scores we've seen. Charging speed isn't quite as stellar. The Note 8 Pro supports Quick Charge 4.0 and USB power delivery, and an 18-watt charger got us from 0 to 39% in half an hour. Not too bad, but nothing special. Now let's talk about the cameras. The Note 8 Pro is one of the first phones with a 64-megapixel quad-Bayer main camera. You also get an 8-megapixel ultra-wide cam, a 2-megapixel camera for macro shots, and a depth sensor. Daylight photos with the main camera come out in 16 megapixels, and they have plenty of detail, great contrast, and vibrant colors. There are some issues though. There's visible over-sharpening, and dynamic range could be better, with some clipped highlights here and there. You have the option to shoot in the full 64 megapixels, and unlike other quad-Bayer cameras we've used, you actually do get nice results here. There's impressive detail and the sharpening halos are gone. Just remember that the file size is much larger. Even though there's no telephoto camera, the phone's 2x digital zoom is actually pretty decent, thanks to being cropped from such a large resolution. Sometimes it's hard to even tell that it wasn't shot from a dedicated telephoto. Sadly, the results from the ultra-wide camera aren't great. Of course, this gives you a wider field of view which you may want for your composition, but these turn out soft and low in detail, and the dynamic range is worse than on the main cam. Portraits are taken with the main camera, and they have natural skin tones, wide dynamic range, and decent detail. However, the edge detection isn't always on point, and we expected better from a phone with a dedicated depth sensor. Here are some close-up shots we took with the macro camera. The main benefit is that you can get quite close to focus on the subject. But since the lens isn't very bright, you can often get a better quality result just by cropping an image from the main camera. At night, the main camera's performance isn't stellar, but it's alright. Images are soft, but dynamic range is decent, and noise is kept in check. You also get punchy colors and nice contrast. Switching to the dedicated night mode will give you a sharper, more detailed image, and dynamic range is improved in the shadows. It gives you a better result overall, without going overboard or looking unnatural. So we recommend leaving this on all the time. As far as the ultra-wide camera goes, it's barely usable in low light, and it doesn't work with night mode. It left us quite disappointed. Let's move on to the 20-megapixel f2.0 selfie cam. Although focus is fixed, it does an excellent job, producing some of the best selfies we've seen on a mid-ranger. They're sharp and detailed, and the HDR works great. The Note 8 Pro can record video from the main cam in up to 4K at 30 FPS, and these look pretty good. There's nice detail, and dynamic range is decently wide. The colors are a bit over the top though, with high contrast and saturation. There is no stabilization in 4K either. But 1080p videos are electronically stabilized. You can record with the ultra-wide camera only in 1080p, and the results are nothing special. So that's the Redmi Note 8 Pro. For 250 euros, you get a nice looking glass design, outstanding battery life, class-leading performance, a bright LCD screen, a great main camera, and an excellent selfie cam. Of course, Xiaomi had to make some compromises here and there, and the most noticeable place is in the quad camera setup. Sure, it sounds exciting, but honestly, besides the main cam, the other three cameras aren't so impressive or even useful. And if you're looking for an OLED screen, you can find it in the Realme XT for around the same price, but that one's not available globally. Overall, there's just not a whole lot to complain about here. The Redmi Note 8 Pro delivers standout features in an affordable package, and it earns our full recommendation. Thanks for watching guys, and see you on the next one.